So let's talk about how Labour is beginning to reap what they have sown. You know what? It's so much fun sowing. Sowing's great. You go, I'm just casting out. This is brilliant. Joy all day. And then when the fruits of what you have sown come back to bite you and you have to reap them, well, that's not so fun. So, I mean, like, look at just, say, the channel crossings. Okay, so there was a week where there was basically no channel crossings because the weather was bad. And then, boom, weather clears up, 800 in a day. Brilliant. So can the Labour stop the channel crossings? No. No, we can't stop the channel crossings. But we can ban smoking outdoors in pubs. Right. I can't even stand outside the pub and have a cigarette. Great. Good to know. So the public finances are in a total mess. 22 billion black hole. So maybe we could stop pissing away money on foreign boondoggles. No. Best we can do is 3 billion a year for Ukraine for as long as it takes, actually. It's only 22 billion we're down. Don't worry about it. Right. Oh, yeah, and we're going to start World War III. By the way, Keir Starmer, as Robert Peston points out, is currently lobbying overdrive with NATO allies to get the the allies to be able to stop shelling Moscow. Interestingly, it was Biden who was like, no, we're not going to do that. Believe it or not, Biden was the restraining force on Keir Starmer's desire to start World War III.
I like the idea that one tiny nugget of his youth, like he retained lucidity, came back to him for a moment, and he was like, no, and then it went away again, and he just sort of sat down.
Yeah, just like some sort of elder figure. Just, no. Anyway, so we're not going to get World War III, at least yet, even though Starmer's really doing his best to stoke it. So, okay, well, what are you going to do for us? What are you going to do? Oh, we're going to raise your taxes. It's going to be a painful budget, by the way. You know, raise your taxes, freeze Granny to death, and blame the Conservatives for the problems. Like, right, okay, right, that's good. Glad to see it. Now, unsurprisingly, none of this has been very popular with the British public. When the latest polls come out, thank you, Guardian, for giving us a nice rundown here. Labour have sunk from, what were they on, 39? Something like that, about 6 months ago. And now they're on 29%, barely ahead of the Conservatives, whom, and I do agree with them, actually, are basically responsible for all of the problems they've inherited. But what's interesting is that Reform are only on 18%. They're not actively capitalising on all of the problems that they have been presented with. And from a political position, you'd think Reform would be like, okay, the ground is as clear as it's ever going to be. All of our opponents are useless.
Much more vocal about stuff.
They could be, and for some reason they've been a little bit supine recently, and I don't really understand why. But as you can see, none of the parties are popular with the public, basically, is what you can take from this.
What I want to know is, I know that this poll is 2,000 people, which they'll claim is a nationally representative sample. And we know we have our own opinions on polls. Polls are polls. But my point...
Just a quick thing, though. Yeah. The polls are showing repeatedly...
Yes, absolutely.
Massive dip in
but my point is that we don't really have an idea of how many people are checked out. We have the turnout from the previous general election, but that presumably, given that Labour have dropped 10% and no one appears to really be picking up loads of the slack, that means that there's a huge number of people who also still have checked out again. So we've got checked out people from the Tories, we've got checked out people now from Labour, the Lib Dems aren't sweeping it all up. So how many people are there actually to capture, and then how can they be captured? Because there needs to be, because otherwise we're dealing with a minority governments that have been elected by minority electorate.
I mean, we absolutely are. It was only 59% of voters who voted in the last election, and Labour only got 34% of them, giving them about 20% of the entire electorate to form this whopping government that they have.
But also, usually, it is usually the case that in the first 2 months or 3 months after one gets elected, there is a grace period that just isn't.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer came out and was like, I hate you, and I'm going to give all your money away to
really
foreigners.
Hates pubs.
And not just pubs, he hates the people in them. That's who he hates.
The only way he could have become less popular is if he had come out of Downing Street, flipped the middle finger to all of the journalists, and then started beating civilians in the street with a baseball bat.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that might have done better than what he's doing now. But it is Starmer's personal popularity that's on the wane as well. I mean, they're still technically more popular than Conservatives, but not by much. And Keir Starmer himself is a particularly unpopular figure. But the thing is, he's just come to peace with it. Labour have just been like, okay, well, we're just going to accept that we're unpopular. We're just going to have to.
On the face of it, I'm not opposed to a government that's happy being relatively unpopular if they were doing the right things instead of murdering pensioners.
Interestingly, I haven't included it, but they're going to fast track assisted dying through Parliament.
So the ones who survive will be offered the option to take the easy way out instead of another winter.
So Jack Frost didn't get you, but Keir Starmer's NHS absolutely will. Incredible. But, I mean, you've got to remember, from their perspective, they view this as purely a budgetary issue. So this is a 2-for-1 for them. Either the old people die of the cold, or they just get murdered by the NHS, alleviating the burden either way. So anyway, you may remember that they were saying, well, we're not going to have corruption. We're going to restore faith in politics and trust to the political system. So when it turned out that David Lammy was getting 200 grand from second jobs, Keir Starmer was like, well, it's just part of the political process. It's just the way things work. And it's like, okay, you know what? I actually agree with that. Yeah, it probably is a part of the political process. It probably is part of the way things work. Which is why it seems a bit hypocritical when you're like, yeah, but we're not going to allow MPs to make media appearances specifically because, of course, there's one particular MP who's very popular in the media and makes a lot of money out of it, and he disagrees with us on things. So this appears to be a rule that's going to be targeting Farage specifically, then explicitly going after his political opponents. So, okay, fine, fair enough. Okay, the MPs won't be allowed to have talk shows or anything like that anymore. Okay, fair enough. I mean, whatever.
The really stupid thing with this is after Nigel Farage posted his expenses and explained that he was being paid this much, he also explained that this was basically not just him. It was about 5 people in his company that were being paid, and therefore that money was going to the company. So all that they've basically forced him to do is relinquish ownership of the company, but that company will still be paid, he will still be paid, but it will be paid through a different means.
Possibly, but the thing I hate about this is the kind of... In fact, we'll get to the envy about this. Okay, so David Lammy will be allowed to collect his 200 grand a year, but Nigel Farage won't be allowed to host the GB News show because that's how fairness works. But moving on, you may remember in 2021 where Keir Starmer was like, Boris, you're taking money from donors, aren't you?
It's been widely reported that Lord Brownlow, who just happens to have been given a peerage by the Conservative Party, was asked to donate £58,000 to help repay for the cost of this refurbishment. Can the Prime Minister, if he's so keen to answer, confirm, did Lord Brownlow make that payment for that purpose?
And yes, he did.
Of course.
They refurbished 10 Downing Street or wherever it was. And okay, fair enough, Starmer, prosecutorially going after him. But then it turns out that Keir Starmer does the same thing. It's just that he gets a lord to buy his wife, quote, £76,000 worth of entertainment, clothes and other free items. More than almost any other MP, says The Times, which is interesting. One questioned why Starmer needed the funds, given he lives rent-free in number 10, and a townhouse in Kentish Town, in northwest London, and does not send his children to private school, which is very selfish. Why wouldn't you have got all that money? But I mean, I suppose that if he had a dying relative, he wouldn't. He was stuck on the NHS waiting list. He wouldn't use private. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is as much the zealot as you might think. He also earned 100 grand in private consultancy fees for a law firm called Mishcon de Rea after stepping down as Director of Public Prosecutions, and Ali, the Lord, has given almost £1 million to the party over the past 2 decades, although £500,000 of that has been donated since 2020. So...
He doesn't love spending his own money. Yeah. It's like Gollum in the Ring.
It's just kind of crazy. It's like, okay, you are just a liar. You are as much of a liar as the previous guy who you were castigating. Okay, fair enough. Politics is a dirty business. Everyone in it has got their hands dirty. Okay, and you were exactly like, he doesn't like spending his own money. That's a good point. Because David Lammy, you remember, he was just defending David Lammy over his £200,000 a year. Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't mind that David Lammy earns money. But so Lammy came out and was like, well, I mean, the taxpayer doesn't provide a clothes budget for his wife.
He's on £160,000.
And he gets 100 grand in consulting fees and various other things.
That would be patronising, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It's like telling your wife you don't have money, so you don't buy your own clothes.
We're only on 160 grand. Rishi had however many millions. We're broke, darling.
Why can't she just buy her own?
We should just buy her own clothes.
Why does the taxpayer have to do it?
I even love that they sent David Lammy in this, a man who was famous for expensing Jaffa cakes at his office in London.
Amazing. And what's interesting is whenever you see the expenses, all Labour MPs claiming maximal expenses of about 250 grand a year, just so you know. Incredible take from the world's brightest foreign secretary. So you remember Lord Ali as well, just a quick thing on this. You remember how he had access to 10 Downing Street as well, by the way. He caused astonishment shortly after the election when he acquired a number 10 security pass and used it to host about 50 donors and other guests at a party in Downing Street Garden. And number 10 was initially unable to explain the reason for the access, really. The reason is obviously he bought it. He bought the access. Come on.
Paid for the card.
Starmer later said that Ali was helping with the transition into government. It's like, oh, really? Okay. All right. So I think we can agree that the Labour Party is equally as corrupt as the Conservative Party. It's just the way the Uni Party does politics. They do it via this kind of pay-for-play corruption. That's fine. So at least we have citizen activist organisations who are holding the government to account. You know, like that famous led by donkeys organisation who decided that what they were going to do is post a new billboard in Clacton. We've booked this for 6 months and we'll update it every time the new Register of Members' Interest is published because Nigel Farage earned £132,713 from second jobs in his first month as MP. Oh, no. Wait. That was legal. Right, he legally earned... Right, okay, so I assume he didn't pay taxes on it. No, he did pay taxes on it. Right, so this is not a crime. This is not corruption. This is Nigel Farage being successful. This was a crime because it was undeclared, but this is what you put the billboard up against. This was the Prime Minister taking donations. This is an MP who is successful. We can't expect this at any point in the future is all I'm saying, right? We're not going to see him actually being held to account. They are just partisan organs of the Labour Party pretending as if they're not. I honestly, I can't stand them. I can't stand this bloody craft beer drinking middle class shitlib thinking that this is something that bothers people. I bet that the people of Clacton are just like, oh, good for him. What law did he break? Who did he
They're just
defraud?
confused. They're just confused. As in, not the led by donkeys people. Anyone who reads that billboard who's not an insane raving leftist is just confused. Why am I being given this information?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
And the thing is, the middle class shitlib thinks, well, you must be deeply envious and therefore hate this man for earning that amount of money. It's like, no, why? I'm not a socialist. Why would I be? Only socialists hate when people earn lots of money. Interestingly, again, the reason I don't care about David Lammy's income is because I'm not envious of David Lammy.
They're also has he been remiss in his duties as an MP? No, he has been out in Clacton. Has he done anything dodgy to get that money? As in, has he abused anyone? Has he done anything?
Has he defrauded anyone? Has he stolen it? No. Has he done anything illegal? No. Unlike Keir Starmer. It's incredible, absolutely incredible.
They don't care.
They don't care. That's the point. This is the point. This is never something you will see from this.
It is entirely an act of 2 minutes hate.
100%. And this is why they were bullying Liz Truss and things like that. So Liz Truss isn't the Prime Minister. Keir Starmer's stealing money from pensioners to make sure they freeze. Do you care? No, you don't care. Liz Truss and a lettuce. Who cares? Anyway, so there is one thing in which the Labour Party can't control, and that is public opinion. That is, people hate Keir Starmer. They hate him because he and his party are evil traitors and they're trying to ruin us. And so when Keir goes to a Doncaster racecourse, well, let's just watch.
I mean, the way I see him, it's like he's making an active effort to be disliked.
Yeah, but
he tries to be disliked.
But you've got to remember that's only because Starmer is an actual psychopath who doesn't have an internal monologue or dreams or the capacity to empathize with human beings unless they're child murderers on death row.
He's just a pure adversarial thing.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw this. Someone was pointing out, look, the fact that Starmer and Kamala Harris are prosecutors is concerning, because a prosecutor only has to care about their own side of the case. They are specifically employed not to worry about the other side of the case. In fact, they're designed to destroy it. And therefore, having one as the prime minister or president of the country where you have to rule everyone is a particularly dangerous thing, because they treat people who disagree with them as prosecutorial adversaries.
It's like being a legal terminator.
Yes. In Starmer's case, a literal terminator sent from the future to destroy us. Anyway, so it wasn't just Keir Starmer who was getting booed at public events. This is extended to other members of the Labour Party. For example, Rushmore Labour MP Alex Baker. She was going to go to a local pub, and she, well, got a warm reception.
Not welcome, traitor.
Rushmore people first.
As of course you can see there, people are aware that the pension payments are being stolen. They're aware that she advocated to have illegal migrants put up in hotels at taxpayer expense, and then she thought, like the rest of the Labour Party thought, that after stabbing us in the back, after calling us far-right, evil Nazi thugs, whatever they're calling us, they could then just come and mingle and live among us, as if we don't feel the knife in the back. It's like, no, you deserve this, and this isn't going to stop whilst you are busy betraying the British public. They're not going to want you hanging around them. You're not a respected pillar of the community. You are an occupying force that we want to get rid of.
Reportedly, after this exchange, she did sit down in that restaurant.
She did.
And still ate.
Yeah.
I don't know how...
Shamelessness.
Yeah, I don't know how... I couldn't do that.
No.
If I was a representative of people and they came to me and were booing me and saying, our people first, because they didn't feel represented, I'd feel disgusted with myself.
Yes.
Absolutely horrific. I couldn't...
But also, I mean, just imagine she goes somewhere where she's booed and she orders there.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were there, I would say, just what are they going to do to my food in the kitchen?
Exactly.
What are they going to do to my beer? I mean, I've left multiple places because I'm just looking at the kitchen and it wasn't particularly good. Imagine if you're a politician and people actually dislike you.
Exactly.
And,
imagine being that hated.
yeah, and actually, I've been to the pub that Keir Starmer wasn't particularly welcoming.
Oh, yeah, that was in Bristol or Bath or whatever.
I think in Bath, yeah.
Yeah, but that was over his COVID policies. But she's, exactly as you would expect from any Labour MP. She opposed pensioners getting the wind fuel. She's in favour of the green nonsense, blah blah blah. And so she put out this statement, which is just incredible. Again, just tone deaf misreading of the situation. It's disappointing that some people feel it's okay to behave like this, especially when they see me out for lunch with my young family. I'll always be ready to discuss the issues that matter most to my neighbours, but this behaviour gets us nowhere, and I will not be intimidated. Like they just don't want you hanging around them. You are a traitor. You are putting illegal migrants up in lovely hotels that I have to pay hundreds of pounds every night to stay in with my money. That's what they're angry with. They're like, my gran, I'm going to have to give her money out of my pocket to make sure she doesn't die this winter. That's what they're upset about. You absolute traitor. I can't get over. And this, can't we all speak? No. People don't want to just live around traitors. They don't want to spend their time with you swanning around in their institution. It's not surprising you're getting booed. It's not surprising at all. I've got no sympathy whatsoever, right? And I'm gonna finish this with a little quote from my article in Islander, which I think actually really summarizes this. This is the article Lifting the Veil. And this is just the last paragraph. And I think what I've done here is presage where politics in Britain is going, right? I said, quote, "We must prepare accordingly for what comes next. Our hearts must harden against the traitors who created this state of affairs, all of them. We do actually still possess electoral power and demographic might. We must accept that we may need to hold our noses and choose parties and people we might not have desired under different circumstances, but the situation has forced our hands. There will be great outrage from the liberal order, but calmly and resolutely we must inform them that the Saxon has made his decision." And that's what you're getting. People do not want you in their pubs. They don't want to see you hanging around. They don't want to be social with you because you are a traitor. Anyway, go and buy Islander. It's really good. That's just the last bit of my article. Every article in there is amazing. But I really mean this. Like, democratically, you guys are done. Like, the next election, Nigel Farage better get his bloody act together.
He needs to become the wartime prime minister.
He absolutely does. And he needs to just obliterate you in every single constituency. Anyway, yeah, like I said, go get Islander. It's amazing. And we're totally on the ball. We're totally on the money. Like, I wrote that probably 3 months ago, something like that. And boom, here it is. The Saxon has made his decision. Hi folks, I hope you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters. If you did and you would like to support us, because of course we're demonetized on YouTube, go over to lotuseaters.com, sign up for £5 a month, and watch Survive the Jive and Bodade in discussion about the ancient Britons and the nitty-gritty details of the inhabitants of these islands, whose DNA, if you are British, you doubtless still carry. Also, go over to X, formerly Twitter, and follow us at lotuseaters_com.